unlimited. Chicken with eyes can't be sweet, no why. I can't be living word fly, keep the gleam in your eye. Con mucho drum roll on time, let the horn blow. Gas to the pedal like metal at a corn show. The rhyme rocker with a shitload of block. I grab the mic and freak the rhythm till there's no more violence.
3, 2, 1, and we're live. So, Abraham, how's it going, bro?
You're not being polite with the pronouns. I identify as attack helicopter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So, how's it going, bro? Since the last podcast, what's been new?
Honestly, pretty good. Learned quite a few things. Been to 2 different countries since the last podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Got insight to a few different ideas, cultures, different monuments. So it's been pretty hectic. 2-3 months now?
Yeah. Damn. So what's your big takeaway from traveling so far?
Honestly, the biggest takeaway, in my opinion, would probably be all the lies that the media, specifically the Western media, has on those countries. And I would meet a few people. Like, I had a layover in Chicago, and I met up with a couple of my friends, and they were like, "Yo, bro, how was Turkey? Like, isn't it dangerous over there?" And I'm like, "What do you mean dangerous?" And they're like, "Yeah, no, bro, isn't it like super dangerous?" And I'm like, "Dude, you guys need to stop believing the media. Like, seriously. I feel more danger being in the U.S. going to a gas station at 9 p.m. than I do going to anywhere in Turkey at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would probably be the biggest takeaway, is take everything what the media says with a grain of salt, and everything's subjective. So, especially when you're in a different country, you'll probably be hearing a lot of bad things about the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the U.S. you'd be
hearing bad things about the Middle East.
exactly, or anywhere else around the world. I mean,
yeah.
U.S. wants to paint a picture that every single country other than the U.S. is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And then U.S. is like this, safe haven.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what the U.S. wants to portray, too. It's like, since this is the modern world, as we were supposed to say, like, the United States itself has been portrayed as, like, this beacon of opportunity across, like, all the world, right? Where you can come in, you can practice your own religion, you can build your own business, you can have a family of your own and live prosperously for generations, right? But I feel like now it's still trying to maintain that same image for older classic Americans versus the new age Americans that come in and are starting to get absorbed into a culture that's just been kind of capsulized in just like small areas of, like, you have New Yorkers that come in, you have New York pride, you come in, you think about, oh, this is our history, this is what we've been through, this is what I am. And you start getting that type of identity from where you live in the United States, and you start losing the bigger picture of what it means to be an American. And so when you start crossing that over to, let's say, what it means to be French, what does it mean to be German, what does it mean to be Middle Eastern, right? Like, you have your own political identity, you have your national identity, and you have your own identity, right? And you're trying to meld 3 things into one, or at least what you portray as some one identity. But going into, like, how the United States and other countries are perceived is, like, you can only find that out by going there yourself and experiencing it yourself. Because no matter what somebody else tells to you, you don't know if it's true or false until you go experience it yourself.
Right.
And I feel like that's where a lot of people don't have the opportunity, is to go out and see these places to actually experience it and create their own opinion for themselves.
Right.
Because it's only, like, in a court case, this would be he say, she say, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't be able to, like, use this as viable evidence, because you'd be like, oh, well, Tommy told me that, Hilltop is a bad place for me to go. Versus you going up to Hilltop and seeing it for yourself.
Exactly. Realizing that it's not that bad.
And so it's just the thing that happens to a lot of people, especially because you want to be able to take the word from somebody that you trust, and especially, like, the news outlets, they want to be trustworthy, but they would bend a story to benefit themselves, to get the ratings and the views that they need to survive as a company, as a news broadcasting station. So
True.
It's interesting, but like I'm glad that you got to go out and like actually experience different parts of the world.
Yeah, and especially because I've been to those places before at a younger age, but you wouldn't understand the world at that age. At
You don't have
12,
the maturity
11,
or the context
yeah, exactly.
at that age.
Because especially when I was like 10, 11, my whole life I was like, I want to go to the U.S. I want to live in the U.S. This is where I want to be. I don't want to leave. This is my home. And then as you get older, and then you start to realize, like I had the same mentality before going there. To be honest, like before going there, I was like, I didn't really want to go, and I'm like, I don't really want to go. It's not the same as the U.S. You know, I could do more things there. Like, why am I going over there? And then I genuinely didn't want to go. But once I went and left the U.S. and went there with a different mindset, well, I would say the same mindset, but at a different age, a different level of maturity.
Yeah.
I went there now. I went there and I enjoyed my experience a lot. And then it's when I left and came back to the U.S. when like genuine depression hit. Like as soon as I landed in the airport,
shell shock.
Yeah, it was because I was there for a month, right? So I was basically getting used and accustomed to that environment that's surrounding
You're
the people.
adapting back again
Right.
to that society.
So when I came back here, I was like, damn, now I know why. Now I know that these places are not as bad
That's what people say.
as what people say, and you don't. It doesn't really hit you until you basically come back, and it's like you start to feel like for the first 4 or 5 days I was here, I was like always thinking, I want to go back, and then over time you're just gonna get used to back to being in the same circles.
Just greasing that grease back again.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, it's crazy that you say that, because I still feel like that's the same thing of what you get exposed to, it becomes your new standard, right? And so if it gets exposed to this higher level of living, this higher level of society, and you go back to where you were, you start to have resentment towards where you've been, because you've been exposed to it and you know that it's a possible viability, like an option for you to go to, right? But if you go back to where you were, you you appreciate less of what you have.
Right.
But before, if you never even had that option to experience that or to compare, right, you would have never had that that feeling in the first place.
Right. And the thing is that Western media and Western like influence is so powerful, because even in the Middle East, when I was living in Qatar, for example, at 6-7 years old, I was watching Disney, I was watching like Cartoon Network, and everything there was Americanized and Westernized, and it's like, I want to go to America now because I want to live the same life that I'm watching on cartoons, on
see
TV.
the ideal, the
Exactly.
perceived idea of what American life is.
Exactly. So it's that growing up, I always wanted to move to the U.S. I wanted to live there because it's what I saw on TV growing up, and it's like, if I want to live the same life, I have to be in America. And then when I came here, yes, it was, fun. It was nice for the first few years, and then you start to realize, it's not what it really is. It's not really, this cartoon life where you're free, you can do whatever you want, and all these parties and clubs, and then you start to realize, like, oh shoot, like maybe this is not what I expected. Like, it's completely different, and you start to realize that what you grew up as a kid.
False expectations.
Yeah, false expectations. Exactly.
Yeah, and I agree with you, because when you, like you said, when you get exposed to higher levels of living, your expectations start to grow, especially for when you're younger and you have more potential. You look at your options in like an entire scale, and you start to think, oh wow, so I could have the potential to go and be this type of person. But you don't understand fully the context of what it means to be that person, right? And so your potential, it's when you're younger, it's granted, right? You almost take it for granted. Like, you can have so many possibilities, but you don't start to specialize in which one of those, right? You don't have the experience to go out and do those things. So when you go and experience higher levels of living, it's like take for a restaurant, right? You were raised up only having home cooked meals. And let's say your mom was like an average cook. Like, she didn't make anything spectacular, but it was always good. It fed you and you liked what she cooked. Then you get taken to a 5-star Michelin-rated restaurant, and you have the best steak you've ever had, and you have the best sides that you've ever tasted, and the dessert, it was just right, and you just had the most wonderful dinner of your life. Then you come back to mom's cooking, and you're like, it's not as good as I remembered it as.
Right.
And you start thinking, man, what would it be like to go and eat there again? What did my mom do different than they did different, right? And you start to like value your mom's cooking a little bit less after that experience. But you don't hate your mom or you don't like her cooking anymore. You still like her cooking. It's just, I know there's something better out there.
Right.
So you start appreciating what you have less. It's almost like if you have a girlfriend that's a 5 and you start seeing an 8 and she's hitting her lineup when you're in this location, and you're just like, dang, 8s are coming after me, but I have this 5 with me. you're like, I can do better, but I also don't value what I have any less.
Right.
And it's,
right.
it's like you have that battle within you. It's like you want to have the best
Right.
thing ever, but then you have to,
And then,
take down.
To continue what you were saying about the restaurant, then eventually you start going to that 5-star restaurant and you start eating it more often, and then it becomes like a daily pattern, and then you're like, damn, I miss my mom's cooking.
Yeah, you miss your mom's cooking.
So
It's true. It's like you think it might be the answer of like this next level or this upper echelon of society. If I join it, I'll be happy or like have all that I wanted. But when you get into it, it's not going to be any different than you were now.
for example, like growing up, McDonald's.
Yeah.
You're dying for McDonald's. Like
you would throw a fit for some McDonald's.
For some
You'd
McDonald's,
be like, I'm not eating dinner.
I'm
going
eating
to starve
exactly.
myself. I get my Happy Meal. I want my toy.
Right, and then now you see McDonald's as the most disgusting kind of food you could
You
possibly
actually
put in
start
your
looking
body.
at like what the food is.
Once you start having it every day and waking up taking 2-hour shits in the morning.
Dude, once you start actually having the repercussions on your body,
Right.
you think it's normal when you're a kid. Like I remember, bro, when I was a kid, I had the worst diet ever. I was the pickiest eater ever, and I thought it was normal, and I just went along with it no matter like. Bro, if I went to the restaurant and I had like the burger that I always had, the same nutrients, the same dessert, and I come back home and I have like the terrible blowing up the bathroom, and I just think it's normal. And my mom would come over to me and be like, "Are you feeling all right?" Because she'd be like, after dinner, I'd be like,
and then you don't want to tell her no. Yeah,
it's
like
Mom, this is normal, I'm fine.
Because you want her to keep giving you McDonald's.
Yeah, and it's like it's so good you don't want to let go of it. But it's like a rope over the edge of a cliff, and it's like it's pulling down, and you can only hold on for so long.
Right.
But then when you let go, it's like you're no longer in pain. You're no longer holding on to that.
And it's kind of weird because when you get sick, like if you have a severe fever, you start to crave the junk food. It's weird. Like when I was sick, every time I get sick, I crave McDonald's, Taco Bell. I don't crave the healthy food when I'm sick.
Because
it's weird.
It's the dopamine you want to have to make you feel good because you feel so bad.
You feel so bad. Yeah.
You feel so shitty that you want it. It's like if you're like you're prepping for a bodybuilding show or something, like you're getting your diet right. You're cutting out all the sugars in your system. And before your taste buds regrow themselves and create new ones, like after 2 months, you're going to start craving sugary foods. Like when you're really depleted and you're like, bro, what is a Snickers bar going to taste like right
Exactly.
now? What would that sugar taste like
Exactly.
right now? And you start craving and you start salivating and you start thinking, you could start smelling it, even tasting it when you walk into a grocery store.
There's this one time when I went on like a 4 or 5 month cut and I was so strict on my diet. 1,500 calories a day, basically canned tuna, like turkey slices without the bread, and it was just like severe.
Turkey slices without the bread.
Yeah, so I was like 4 or 5 months in and not having a single piece of junk food. And then the one time I had junk food, I swear I almost started crying because of how good it tasted. I went to Rocky Chocolate Mountain Factory or something like that in Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got myself like a butter pecan, like apple slice or whatever it was, like caramel apple, something like that. And I almost started crying because of how good it tasted.
Dude,
Crazy.
I feel you on that. Because I get it, because it's the craving that you want. It's the craving that pushes you to get that food, and it's like, you don't really want that food. You want a part of the food. You want the feeling of what it's going to give you.
Exactly.
And it's like, when I started like understanding that a little bit more, I started substituting what that thing
Then
was.
you feel instant regret after having it.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, it's like busting a nut. Bro.
Right.
Like you want to have sex so bad, and then as soon as you have sex,
And you're like, eh.
You lose all the benefits of like having a clear head, and you're like kind of foggy afterwards. And you're like, why did I really do that?
Yeah, exactly right.
Like 40 minutes after, you're like, bro, there's no real benefit to
exactly.
that. I felt great for that second, but like afterwards, now you're just like in a worse off position.
Right.
But dude, it's crazy. Like once you start figuring out substitutions in your life for like better options, you can start transferring that over into other ventures, right?
Right.
But yeah.
You have anything to comment on that, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is the way that you were raised and the way that you're, conditioned as a kid, it all plays a factor. And especially like with food, for example, I mean, if you grow up eating the exact same thing and like this is what's normal to you, the second you see something different or the second you go to school and you're exposed to something else, you're going to want it because naturally as humans, you want what you can't have. It's like growing up, I always... Sorry, I was getting a call. Growing up, I was with my grandma all the time. She's from Mexico. Mm-hmm. All I would eat as a kid is beans and tortillas. And I got tired of it to the point where if I look at them now, I'll probably puke. Like, I can't eat it. And so the first time I went to McDonald's, every single day I would beg my mom to take me to McDonald's.
That happened.
Just exactly what you're saying. And it gives you that gratification. But then you realize as you get older and you get more mature that there's a reason that the people older than you and then, you know, the way you're raised, you become grateful for it because you realize that that's the way that, you know, the way for success, really.
Yeah, and I agree with that because, dude, whatever you're raised around, you take for granted, and then when you lose it, you realize what you really had. And going into your later stages of life, especially like family relationships, like you start taking what you have for granted, like the family that you have around you, and especially what they provide for you. And as soon as you get that taken away from you, like worst case is like a family death, and you start really rethinking about what really went on through your guys' relationship, the family dynamic, how they influence other people around you, and how they really live their life. It's like you start getting the context around the family relationships and the family dynamics, and then you start appreciating more of what was really provided towards you versus you having like an ignorant perspective of just like, this is not what I want, this is what I want, I'm gonna go get what I want, and then you don't have it anymore, and you're like, damn, I wish I was going back to where I was. And you're just like spiteful afterwards.
You know, the older I get, one thing I always realize is, you know, I'm 17, I'm still young, but throughout like my high school years, I slowly became more and more rebellious, because when you go to school, you meet other people and you see how they live, you know, you get influenced by it, and you can even become jealous because you want to do things that they do and you're not allowed to do. And the older I get, I realize more and more my parents are right about a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know, they're right about a lot of things, and you really do gotta like respect your elders. And like one thing that Abraham taught me is like, you know, respecting your elders, because before I met him, I really didn't have that, because, you know, I was at school and my parents both work full time, so it's like, you know, I didn't have that. You didn't have
the influence around you, and so you started taking like other people's influence to replace that. Yeah. And I mean, that's a big thing too, of just like maturity in itself. When you go into the schooling system, you have this influx of kids that are the same age as you, and like you still have similarities of what you're interested in, what classes you have, which class period, which lunch you have, and that kind of forms around your friend group, who you hang out with, and then after school, what your activities are.
I mean, the school system's definitely something that's very interesting. I mean, education's incredibly important, and you're always going to be learning. But, you know, one thing about the school system is see, Rockefeller, at least in the United States, is the person who funded, you know, the idea of having a curriculum. Yeah. And so you go in, you got all these students with different ideas, thoughts, and dreams, and you go and you teach them all the same thing. Conformity, right? And so they're all conditioned to go to college, to go into debt to go to college, and then to go get a job, and then to retire at 65.
And to buy a house.
That's the American dream. That's another one, is buying a house. I mean, the whole notion of buying a house, who was it really created for?
It was the housing market.
Yeah,
it was the real estate people, the banks.
The banks and the
oh, you want to buy a house? Oh, we'll give you a loan for that house.
Yeah.
You can just pay us off. No worries. Make it easy payments. And then you come in at the interest rates, and then the bank come in, they want their interest rates. They outsource the money. They're fractionalized, so they don't have any money on hand. They love for you to deposit the money. You don't want to withdraw the money. It's like, it's the weirdest thing when you start getting into like credit systems, or like even debt in total. It's like schooling systems in general now, it's more glorified of like a debt culture. It's like, you need a car when you turn 16. Oh, don't worry about a crapper car. Lease this car for 3 years. We'll get you a nice 2023 or 2024 Honda Civic. Don't worry, easy payments of $700 a month. Don't worry, that's like a part-time job on the side. You can afford that. Versus like, you don't look at the bigger picture. I'm signing off on $75,000 worth of debt, right? That I gotta pay off in like how many years? And then you go into, oh, well, I need an apartment. I like this place. I like the area. Oh, it's okay. I'm only paying this amount a month. Versus, oh, you know how much money you're actually putting into that housing? Versus like you actually paying rent for a property and like upsizing it to where 10 years down the line you can sell it for a profit. Or you don't get taught a lot of these things, so you're in this like this age of learning what you're doing, and it doesn't really hit you until like your mid 30s, right? You really start thinking about financing houses, or like car payments, or like other stuff like tax wise or debt wise. When you're younger, that's where you implement those things to actually get a benefit from. So like your retirements, like a lot of people retire with no money, and so if you were to invest at our ages, like 20 years old, put like $6,000, the max amount you can in a Roth IRA, and like by the time you retire, for a tax-free pull of like what, multi-million dollars, and you can make $6,000. Let's be honest. Like, you can do
That's not
3
hard to do at
jobs.
all.
Right.
3 jobs, 3 sources of income that you're making under minimum wage from, and you can outsource those if you're really working for them. You can pay all your bills, have that going for you, and not really be like rich. You can make $10,000 a month from different sources and still be well off.
And you can
know
put
what I mean?
assets in that Roth IRA too. That's one thing people miss. Is like my dad's a financial advisor, so we talk about this a lot at home. Is you can literally buy a house in some of these, funds and plans, and then you can basically take that money tax free, and it appreciates tax free.
Exactly, because
You
then
can
it
hold
beats
assets
out
in there.
inflation.
Businesses even.
Because you get a normal IRA, right? You get a normal, basically, so you put in more money. Like, you can put 24.5 into it a month, and then you get taxed when you pull it out. But then there's also, like, it depends on, like, what your business model really is. If you're making that amount of money, is it worth it down the line? Or for a personal, like a Roth IRA, you can get that tax free, or even a personal dedicated account. And there's different rulings, and that's where the IRS, they have all this information out that you can research yourself and look into it, but nobody tells you to go into it. They just say, oh, well, stocks are a good option, real estate's a good option, but you don't get taught on what's the proper way to get into it, how can I actually make a profit onto it, what's the time, and what's the area that I need to go into. It's like, if you're really looking for an option, if you really want to be like an entrepreneur and make money yourself, you can research the options around you and benefit for like the next 2 years, and then you have a new baseline, and that new baseline will help you to get to where you actually want to go. Because like, still for bodybuilding, like, I'm never going to be an influencer or have sponsorships when I first started into the gym, right? I have to build this portfolio basically of my physique, my lifts, like how long I've been training. All this gets accounted for when I get into like, oh, I want a sponsorship deal with Young LA, I want a sponsorship deal with Gorilla Mind, right? And it's going to be based off my physique, the following that I have, and how long I've been training, or like what's my community like outreach towards. Same thing with my portfolio if I'm going to be in like going into an investor, right? Like, oh, I've been working for myself for 5 years. I've made like 100K for this year. I've upscaled to like 300 in these 2 businesses. Like, a lot of that stuff's going to be shown. That's where you're going to get like the opportunity to go out and do these things. But you have to do that work first to even get into that level or opportunity itself, right?
Right, and I want to mention the school topic that you guys were speaking about earlier, on how basically I genuinely believe that going to school is a scam, and
like college.
College specifically. And I can attest to that because my father opened up a elementary school, middle school, high school, and a university.
Oh, wow.
And every time I'm talking to him, do you think he's telling me, oh, I have 400 students and all of them are getting 4.0 GPAs and these students are smart? No. Nope. He's telling me, hey, I just got paid $30,000 tuition and I have 3,000 students. And all these students, I'm going to try to, milk them by putting, a cafeteria in the school. That way they pay for the food at school. So that way, I can make money at the school lunch. And then on top of that, let's put them in the elementary school so that once they graduate elementary and go into high school, they'll come to my high school. So I'm going to propagate and put some advertisements in the middle school so they go to the same, my high school and pay me more tuition. And then from high school, I'm going to try to advertise the university and like give all these offers and all these scholarships and everything.
Planned routes throughout the education.
Right.
You create a culture around the school system to where you look forward to going into the middle school. You create a community around to where they have brothers and sisters. Let's hope so, right? Brothers in middle school, the little brothers in elementary, right? Elementary little brother's going to look towards his big brother and be like, oh, he went here, he had all these friends, so you're going to be influenced by that, so they want to go to the same place where his brother went, obviously. Right. And so you need to create a culture to where it's a self-providing, like a positive feedback loop of the families come back, that's where they're born from, they have an identity, like the persona of, oh, I came from this school is a prestigious school, and I want my kids to go to the same school that I went to, right? Because you have your own memories and experiences from there. Right. So it's the same thing that you said, the way that you set it up, how they're paying for their own lunches, that way you can have that increased money. You're not spending that extra amount just for the food that's there. You have the upkeep, you have the maintenance of the school itself, you have the water fountains around, you have the plumbing, the sewage, like this is all stuff you'd have to take into account. But in the eyes of the public, right? They only look at it as like, is it a good school system? Are they providing a good education? Do the teachers accept my students? Are they respectful to my students? where's the best college for them? Is it a crime neighborhood? Like, these are a lot of things that parents look towards for putting their kids into schooling systems.
Right, and then at the end of the day, to continue on the university part, now he's opening up dorms, and he's trying to, divide the dorms into 4 different people living in the same dorm, so that way he can utilize the same space, but for more money.
More kids.
And more kids to be in that dorm, and, overcharging the cost of the dorm because the kids are getting loans, so they don't really care. They can't really go
high risk.
Right, exactly.
They're high risk tenants.
The high risk tenants, so they can't go get an apartment. So their best option is to get a dorm
On campus dorm.
on carpet, and they're paying more than they would at an apartment.
Exactly.
But they're paying it
But
divided
then make
by
it
4
mandatory.
people. Exactly, make it mandatory.
First year, you have to be on campus.
You have to
And
be
I
on
see that a
campus.
lot. Like, you
Exactly.
see a lot of people, like, in their first year at college, they're like, oh, I can't wait to have an apartment with my friends. Because it's basically what a dormitory is, except you have a lot more rules, shittier conditions, and you don't have as much freedom.
Right.
And so when you go into college and that mandatory rule, that's what leads a lot of people like, oh, I'm way more in debt, because it's like literally $7,000 more to live on campus than it would be off campus.
Exactly.
And that's going into your tuition, into your student loan, which is funded by the bank, right?
Right.
That you're getting way more interest on, and you can't avoid like normal loans, right? Because
Right.
student loans follow you through bankruptcy.
And all the kids that are going to dorms are away from their parents, right? So where do
they're
they get their
getting
food?
influence from?
Where do they get their food?
On campus
on
or
campus,
around campus.
or around campus, or somebody that accepts the same form of payment, and they usually
Your
have a deal
EBT
with that
card
person.
Out,
Yeah,
you get your
exactly.
school card out, and you just
Exactly.
funding it through your student loans. And a lot of people right now, they live and party through their college years when they have this loan out, and they accrue this interest. And so when they leave after, like when they're 24, 25, 26, they're literally like 60,000, 70,000 deep in debt. Plus, if they have a car that they're not paying off, really, they're probably leasing the car, right? That's more debt on top of that. Nobody's telling them how to get out of debt. They probably have credit card debt because of frivolous spending, getting drunk on the weekends, partying, like a lot of the other stuff. And then you don't have a job. You're not going to be employed as soon as you get out of college. Even
Exactly.
if the field that you went into college for, is that a profitable field? Are people getting hired out of college? Probably not.
Honestly, I mean, if you think about it, I'm 17. I'm getting ready to either go to college or work, and right now I'm working, here as a car salesman. And also, if everybody's listening, come to Venture Auto Sales. I mean, we have deals,
this podcast
deals
has
on
been
wheels.
sponsored by
Yeah.
Venture Auto Sales. Deals on Wheels. Come by. Insert location now.
Yeah. And one thing is the value of the college degree. I mean, when you have all these people going to get it, it's obviously it's going to become oversaturated.
It's a diluted source now.
And I mean, these banks, these schools, what they're doing is they're taking all these 17, 18-year-olds, I mean, really 18-year-olds who are going to college, and they're giving them $150,000 to go to school with a lot of times zero collateral. But if I wanted to do the same thing to go open a business, I'm not going to have that opportunity. So, in my mind, I'd like to go to school. Sure, that'd be great. I like to learn. I like to read. But I'd rather get my education through working, through reading
experience.
books, and then by doing this, by sitting with people older than me and talking about it, talking about life and actually having a meaningful conversation. Because look, I'd rather pay $300 a month to drive my C63 AMG than go into $150,000 into debt to go get a job to maybe be able to afford a car. You know what I mean?
And
Yeah.
it's funny that he mentions that because a lot of the student loans are non-collateralized. So basically, they're giving you $150,000, and if you don't pay it back, what's the worst they can do? It goes to collections, and then they'll come after your assets, like if you ever get a house or anything like that. But when you ask a bank for $150,000 at 18 years old to go open a business, that business is the collateral. They can come in and take your business.
Exactly.
So why is it that they're trying to get kids to go to school when there's no collateral? The banks doesn't really benefit except on the high interest over the long years, but they have more benefit if they were to go and open up a business, because then they can go and take that business and take all their assets.
But it's a safer option for them to do that, because you think every year there's more people going to college. Every year there's another 18-year-old turning 19 going into freshman year of college, right?
Right.
Versus how many 18-year-olds are going into business now? How many
None.
18-year-olds out of
Rarely.
high school go
Rarely.
into business in that same field for the same amount of money? So it's more profitable for a bank to invest in kids going into high school or going into college that don't have the financial experience to properly fund their
Right.
college expenses, right?
Right.
So they know they're going to abuse their limit. They know they're going to probably
Right.
open up credit cards. They know they're going to have expedient amounts of debt. They're going to have
Right.
so much shit going on. They have no idea how to actually handle it, so they're going to sell them as much as they
Exactly.
can. And then they get, boom, iron fist when they graduate, and they're like, I got this much debt. How do
got
I
this
do
much
it?
debt, and now I
Minimum
have to go
payment,
get a job
minimum payment,
so I can
minimum
pay it
payment,
off.
interest on
Yeah.
top of it. That interest is what kills a lot of people. They don't even know. They're like, oh,
Most
25%
people, yeah.
interest loan, I'll take it.
Exactly.
It's like-
And then the other thing is, okay, so as soon as they're done with school, right, they need to get a job so they can pay off their debt. And usually when you're done with school, you go, let's say you go work at a corporate job that pays you $6,000-$7,000 a month, right?
Hopefully 6 to 7,000.
Yeah, hopefully $6,000-$7,000 a month with a bachelor's degree, if you're lucky, because most people get accepted to jobs that require a bachelor degree are now getting into those jobs with masters. So you now have to go an additional 2 years of college, get more in debt.
So it's basically a mandatory 4 years before you even get into a job.
And then another thing that you need is once you're out of college, you're probably going to need a girlfriend or a wife. And then once you get a girlfriend or wife and you get married, you need a house. So now you get another loan, right? So now you can't leave your job because now you have a mortgage and now you have to pay for school.
And not even to think your wife's debt. Too.
Exactly, your
'Cause when you
wife's
get
debt.
married, you accrue the debt of your wife.
You accrue the debt of your
And so
wife.
you think about both of you. You went to a 4-year college. You both took out car loans. You're both
And now
going
you
into
need
a
car
finance
loans.
and a house loan, right?
Yeah.
So if you're gonna have a family, you need to have another car for the kids, right? To go and drop them off to their school system, to drop off to their after-school activities. Your wife needs a car for her job, and most likely you're gonna need a car for your job, right?
Yep.
Because that's what's
Camera died.
You can just turn it back on.
You know, one other crazy thing on top of that about like, getting married
Yeah.
is it's become normal to buy a ring and propose, right? But where was that even started? That was started in the 40s by one company.
Yeah.
It was all started by one company. It's a marketing thing.
And
But now it's normal.
Yeah, and it's all got created to. Back in the day, it was all basically one company. It's like one company that started up a lot of these things. So if you think the diamond business, like, oh, a kiss begins with K, like that commercial, and then you go into like grocery stores, like back in the day when you went to a grocery store, you knew a lot of the food was from your local farmers that were around. Especially like when you're getting raised, you had at least one neighbor or somebody that you could go to that had produce on hand, that had cattle on hand, that had some form of food that you can buy off of them, right? And that would build a relationship between you, and it would actually help him out because it was a one-to-one sale, not through a middleman or through mass production or from outsourcing these resources, right?
Yeah.
And so you think about how we've walked away from a traditional one-on-one service basis of a farmer and a consumer, right? Versus now you have to go through regulations. It's like there was a case right now where Amish farmers cannot sell their raw milk to people that were buying it, right? Because of health standards by the FDA, right? Food Department. Yeah, Food and Drug Department. So the livelihood of these Amish farmers, right, are getting collapsed. Like the economic situation of that is like fucking, if your only sales is from milk sales, right? And then you have to go through the FDA to approve your milk, right? That situation, each batch is going to be different. So you have to get each batch approved by the FDA, and you have to get each cow certified by the FDA, and you have to get your land certified saying this is proper free range grazing, this is grass fed beef, this is like blah 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 blah, jumping through a bunch of hoops when you could literally, like, say I'm down the street, I drive up to Dale's house and he's selling me 12 gallons of milk and he's selling me one cow, right? I could give him the money for that. I see the conditions, I see everything going on. And most likely, Dale's going to be a stand-up guy. He doesn't have any intentions behind it. He's literally a farmer, right? And if you ever went through that life of being a farmer, you realize, like, there's too much shit for you to do to ever gyp somebody off, right? To ever give somebody a bad deal. And it goes back to, like, a whole thing about integrity and, like, your own situation with another person, your relationship with them. But getting back to, like, the main point that I was making is, like the process of government ruling and like the injection of the government inside of like food and resources is like a huge grip hold on it, right? There's no freedom in it. You can't no longer grow vegetables in your backyard. You don't have the proper seeds anymore, and you don't have the fertile soil to build anything anymore. The square footage of your house is getting smaller and smaller every decade, right? So if you were to ever grow your own food or have your own resources, it would become way less sustainable versus you going to a grocery store and getting their food, right?
Exactly.
And they can do anything they want to it. They can put any chemicals in their farms that they have
Exactly.
in the name of oh, this is safer, less insects,
Growth hormones,
Yeah.
pesticides.
It's like you're getting more food, and they're changing the genetic data of like a lot of these foods, the processed foods that they have.
Since when was a chicken like 5 times the size of an average like free range chicken? Like it's all the growth hormones, and then you're ingesting that as well, like the pesticides, getting rid of
Exactly.
all the bugs that are getting into the fruit. That's still in the fruit, and then you're eating it. You're ingesting pesticides. Every single fruit that you have, every banana, every vegetable, every piece of meat you have has some type of growth hormone or chemical in it that is not good for you.
It's not, and I mean,
And again, cancer wasn't a thing 100, 200
yeah.
years ago. Why is this like a new thing now?
it's like you think about the life expectancy of a lot of these people, and you think, oh, living back in like the 1800s, like you only lived when you were 30, right? But you think there's kids born in the 1800s, born in 1890, that died in like 1980,
Exactly.
1990.
Exactly.
And you're saying
100
back
plus
then,
years.
when they
Yeah.
were kids at the most vulnerable state of their lives, they grew up and ingested all the food that was around them, like grown up in the areas that they were around, lived through the 1910s, 1930s, 1970s. Like each decade was drastically different from the other, and exactly the more and more and more resources changed, the food market has changed. Less farmers, especially on the area that you're in. If you're in a big main city, they're bringing food in.
And the
into these
quality of meat
places.
is going down too, because
Exactly.
what do you feed cows? Grass, right? Now they're
Corn.
using corn.
'Cause
Corn
it's
is a lot
cheaper.
cheaper, and it's less. There's less quality meat because a cow is meant to eat grass, and it's meant to digest the
it's
grass.
meant to range and
Right.
go and feed off of
Right.
different grasses. So they're meant to eat weeds. They're meant to eat normal grass. They're meant to eat alfalfa. They're meant to eat flowers. They're meant to eat a lot of these things that would be grown in the local urban areas of where they're being raised
Yeah.
at, right? Versus now, it's the same patch of grass, same type of food. It's all the exact same. And you think what happens to the soil that's getting done to that? If they're only growing corn in this one area and not a diverse population of the botany that's supposed to be there, right? So if you take away all that and only grow corn, that soil is going to get the nutrients ripped out of it, only producing corn, and then you're not dumping off the remains in that same place. You're taking that corn and leaving it, right? So instead of actually eating it, putting it back into the ground so it can get digested and decomposed and back into the soil, you're taking all that stuff away. And it's the same thing of like the Dust Bowl that happened back in the 1930s. From over farming in certain areas and then exporting the food out, you left the soil barren, and that's what led to like this huge dust storm back in like the farm grow areas in the 30s, right? And it's like I feel like the same thing's gonna be happening today. It's like you see a lot of the major farm plants that's owned by huge corporate chains or manufacturers. The quality of life there and like the plants you don't even think like that doesn't look proper or free range. Instead of like going to an Amish farm where they're only using hand tools, non-powered tools, and it's all the animals that are around, or they're like basically shitting in the fields and like
Right.
doing all that stuff. And you see the soil quality is way different. It's like the dark, rich brown earth versus like a light brown like dust.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Bill Gates is literally going around buying farmland in the
Mhm.
Midwest, thousands and thousands and thousands of
Acres
acres
at a time.
There's a reason for that. There's a reason for all of this. I mean,
Owning
the
the land.
government wants you to think that the FDA is, in your best interest, but
Mhm.
I mean, if you really do some research, I mean, come on. I mean, most of these regulations, they're kind of just bullshit.
Yeah.
Why? Because they want to keep us from being, the
They wanna
strongest individuals
suppress
that we can
your,
be.
your natural growth ability, right? So I mean, like, especially it happens when you're a kid. Like, when you're growing up, there was a reason why you had like stews and like different types of food that you're eating that your parents made, because it was first like there was a lot of kids. You need to have a lot of food, a meal that was gonna be able to feed like 5 kids at a time, right? And so they had packed with vegetables, root vegetables, meats, and like other things that helped you gain lots of proteins, a lot of fatty acids, branching chain amino acids, especially from vegetables, where you're getting the nutrients, the potassium, the magnesium, the zinc, the phosphorus that you need, and the potassium in your system. And when you go into that, you start researching like how this affects your central nervous system, the way you grow and your growth plates, like growth hormone, all this stuff. That's why there's so many like huge and naturally strong, jacked people back in the day. Like think about prior to 1900s. Like there's so many natural people before testosterone is even synthesized. There's like just naturally strong people,
Yeah.
and it was through their diets and through their work that made them these big people that they needed to be, right? Versus now, the diet that you're being provided and being fed is very highly processed, high carb, low protein, low fat.
And another thing is, especially these days, a lot of people are vitamin deficient.
Very
A lot of people are
deficient.
very vitamin deficient, and they turn to a doctor because they start having health complications because they're deficient on certain vitamin. Here's a
Depression,
pill.
anxiety,
Yeah,
all this
here's a
stuff,
pill. Exactly. Like
diet
my brother
related.
my brother Ali, he got pneumonia,
Mhm.
right? And he was also like diagnosed with low iron. Now he's on iron pills. So now he has to take these iron pills so that he can get his iron level back up. I was diagnosed with low potassium. They were giving me potassium pills. Apparently the I think that there's like a number scale or whatever where if it was lower than 3.5, it's like
nanograms per decibel,
super
yeah.
deficient, and if like on the high end it's like 5 points or something like that. And I was 2.1. So I had to go on potassium pills for a certain amount of time. I haven't even checked the doctor. I have to go back and check to see if my potassium ever dropped. I started having health problems. My heart was having palpitations and arrhythmia.
So that's electrolyte imbalance.
Exactly.
When you have potassiums, that's a deficiency.
Mhm.
Electrolytes regulate the impulses in your central
Right.
nervous system. And
And-
that's what a potassium deficiency is, and that's what affects the heart.
Right, and I did some research, and apparently a lot of the foods that I was eating, like the processed foods, are diuretics, and they actually deplete
They
your
flush out of your
they
system.
flush out of your system. And a lot of like, for example, because I quit this, but I used to take a lot of energy drinks first thing in the morning, like before the gym.
Caffeine thins your blood out.
Thins your blood out, especially energy drinks like Monster are like diuretics. And I've been trying to drink a lot more coffee instead. And apparently, I believe it's aspartame or something like that. That's in the energy drinks that is so bad for your heart. It's terrible for your health. And apparently, when you drink a lot of caffeine, you start to pee a lot. And when you pee, like over excessively pee, you're actually peeing out all the nutrients, all the vitamins in your body.
You're flushing your system.
Yeah,
out.
you're flushing your system. Your kidneys just can't handle it, so it flushes everything out. So it's another way for these like doctors and big corporations to start advertising these pills and
They're
take vitamin A pills and
They're
take
funneling a low nutrient deficient diet model.
Yeah.
And so that they can sell you a supplementation
Right.
that can fix that deficiency.
Right.
But they're the ones that caused and promoted the deficiency to begin with. Like you think about the food pyramid in itself, a lot of people won't go by that. You think about like immune deficient people. They would go on a carnivore diet to fix that because of their autoimmune disease. And you see like the actual effect it has on these people. They couldn't follow a normal diet model that would be acceptable today, right? Versus if they went on that full carnivore diet, eating only red meats, and I mean only red meats, and then having water, like different types of sparkling water, because that's the only variation that their body sustains or at least puts up with, right? That diet model works for them, and yet in the doctor's eye, they would tell them that they're wrong and that they need to hop on all these pills. They need this medication.
Right.
Versus their anecdotal evidence of them going on this diet and eating only red meats solve their problems.
Right.
And, one thing this whole thing makes me think about is, like, my grandparents. My grandparents are from a small village in Mexico in the hills. And, when they came here, it's like, they bought a house in like, Faircrest, which is, like, a suburb of, Tacoma.
Yeah.
And they had a little bit of space. So the first thing my grandma thought, she's like, I'm going to make a garden. That's the first thing she did.
Smart.
And you know what? Thank God they're both very healthy people, because what they do is they grow their own food, they cook their own food, and in Mexico that's all they did is they would only eat the food that they cultivated, that they raised.
Perfect.
And though you get all your vitamins in your food if you eat the right food. But when you come to the United States and like us, we're car salesmen, we're on the move all the time. We don't have time, to go pick a zucchini out of the garden. We don't have a garden here. We got to go down the street to McDonald's or to the teriyaki shop and get
your
some
options
food.
are a lot less
Yeah.
than you would having like your own garden, your own household, and especially like meal prepping itself. Like it's a whole different game because if you have the right food around you and you have the resources and then you prep it out, still it's like, bro, it's not the best quality food. You're having a cold meal at like 5 p.m., right? Would you rather just go into a restaurant and have a hot meal placed in front of you? But still, it's like it's a needs to wants. It's like, what do I want presently, or what do I want to have later down the line? It's like, I know what I'm going to end up if I just eat this diet model, or if I eat these meals all the time.
And
Sorry,
Go ahead.
My last thing I'll say is like my great grandparents, they lived till they were like 102, 103.
And you think about
You know
American lives now, 60, 72.
right, 60, 72.
Nearly
They're
30
lucky.
years cut
They're
off.
lucky. Yeah. Another thing I want to mention is that if you want to get anything healthy, especially when you're working long hours or you get off work late, the only options that are available at night are McDonald's, Jack in the Box, Taco Bell.
The 24-hour spots.
24-hour spots. Like, you can't go to like Whole Foods at 10, 11 p.m.
There's no healthy option that's
No
out
healthy
at that
option.
hour. And
Exactly.
there's only fast food. And you
Fast
think
food.
about what fast food is. It's like highly processed, fucking terrible food for you.
Exactly.
Yet that's the only thing that's open and available to you. So what are your options? Really, it's like, do I eat today or do I starve today?
Exactly.
And it's like, well, I could go back home. It's like, do I? It's like,
But I'm tired. I don't
I'm
want to go
tired. I
home
don't want
and
to drive
cook. Yeah.
45 minutes to go cook
Yeah.
and 30 minutes of cooking and then eat, which is another hour, and then
Exactly.
cleaning up the dishes
Exactly.
afterwards. So it's another half an hour.
Right.
So you just spend like 4 hours eating a meal versus, oh, I'm gonna just take this exit, get a quick McDonald's, throw it away, and be done in 8
And then
minutes.
guess what? You're ingesting that food right when you go to sleep, and then you wake up in the morning, and you have gut health now. So now let's go to the doctor and get some pills because I'm having terrible gut health.
It's like my gut's terrible. I'm not getting enough sleep because it's all around what you're doing in the day.
Exactly.
Your daily routine, your daily habits affect you so much more than you ever think it would. It's like when you eat your meals depends drastically on what your lifestyle is.
That's the thing, and another thing I noticed, like going to the Turkey and the Middle East, when I was here, majority of the food I was having was fast food or just outside food, restaurant food,
And the
I would
cost
take
of it
2
was just
hour
crazy.
shits in the morning, bro, 5 times a day, and then when I was in Turkey, I shit you not, like I would go 2-3 days without shitting.
Shit you not, literally.
Yeah, like shit you not, literally. I would go 2-3 days without shitting.
Bro, that's crazy.
And it got to a point
And
where it's like my gut health was amazing. I
Perfect.
never felt bloated.
Immaculate.
I never felt bloated. I never had stomach problems. The bathroom was like a quick 5-minute visit, and then over here it's like, first thing in the morning I gotta like sit in the bathroom
I
for an
feel you,
hour in
bro.
pain.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
Dude, I feel that so much because like nowadays when I'm at my job right now, like there's the only option we have on the road is like gas station food. Gas station food, I hate it, bro. I hate going in there because I see it and I see that food. I'm like, this is just disgusting slop. Like this is just plastic on top of plastic getting put in a reheater for 2 days. And it's like I don't have any other food around me, and it's like, is my option not eating for my entire shift and I feel shitty this entire day, or do I just get it?
Overpriced too. Like,
Dude, I dropped $15 for a breakfast burrito that I could make for like literally $3.
with $15, not even $15. I was
It
sending you
adds up
pictures
so
on
much over
Snapchat.
the month. It's like if you
Yeah.
actually take that and buy the food itself in bulk, you can make food for 3 months.
Dude, I was going to 5-star restaurants on the beach and having a complete meal, appetizer, like an actual entree and a dessert and drink
3-course.
for
Three-course meal.
$4 on the beach.
Bro.
5-star hotel with steak, with like carpaccio, all these like amazing foods for $4.
Same environment here in the U.S. $1,200 dinner.
$1,200 dinner on the beach, something
Easy.
like that in LA. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I mean, American life has just become all about
So
convenience.
oversaturated.
It's convenience, consume. Convenience, consume.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. Because, I mean, luckily I've been very fortunate to, like, travel to Europe for my dad's work.
Mm-hmm.
And, you go there, and for him, travel was a big thing for me growing up. Like, we always took a nice trip. Luckily, I'm very fortunate, he made, good money, and he wanted to bless us with travel. And so we traveled a lot, and we went to Europe. And one thing is you're spending $10 for, a wonderful meal that you know where the food's coming from. And then and you're walking everywhere.
Exactly.
You're
That's the
walking
thing that
everywhere.
we don't have in
Yeah.
the U.S. Like everything around in Europe, you can walk towards, and it's a beautiful scenery that you can go around. So you don't hate walking. And it's like the environment, the people, it allows you to kind of get into that role. But if you go like to New York or something like that, it's a very walkable, like
Yeah.
air quotes, walkable state. It's like you sucks. There's sewage everywhere. There's terrible people. Homelessness is rampant, and then everything is overpriced. So why would I even want to be here except for the culture, like the idea of eating in New York, right?
I mean, do you want to go take a walk on Meridian right here? I mean, I think you'll see like some wonderful corporate buildings and maybe some restaurants. And you also might see some trash.
Beautiful
littered on the streets.
atmospheres. Like
Yeah.
this is a Michelin star area, bro. You got to come down here.
I mean, I thank God and my family for coming to the United States for the opportunities.
Yeah.
But honestly, once you make your money, you got to kind of get out of here, because if you
Book it
care
and
about
bail.
health and wealth,
Look at that.
you know.
So this meal right here is kebabs, chicken, all that. That can feed 3 people, right?
Sheesh.
Guess how much that meal was?
Everything on this platter, I'm seeing probably like lamb chops, pork. Not probably not pork. You probably got chicken. Yeah, that looks like chicken, drumsticks, and then you got onions on the side, full-grown tomatoes, grilled cheese. Dude, and if I was to go to a steakhouse right now, that plate would probably be $85. But I'm guessing turkey, like that meal, probably what, $250?
No, $10. $10. $10.
Damn.
This is the last time
You
we
can't
went.
even get a Big Mac for $10. You can't even get a Big
You
Mac
can't
meal
get a
for $10.
Subway sandwich for $10, bro.
Yeah, it's crazy.
This is the last time we went to my family's village, like 3 years ago. They charge like $2 for a plate like this with a fresh catched fish from the ocean. You get potatoes, you get some little salad, some fruit.
So the plate itself, it looks like, for the audience that can't see,
Yeah.
is about like probably like 8 ounces of fish, cup to the side with a cup of rice. Then you have like cilantro or like pico de gallo on the side, and then you have lemons and limes. And then obviously like probably beans and rice on the
Yeah.
side that you're getting from a larger bowl or something.
Yeah, plus in the beginning we always have fruit, or at the end you have fruit, like all these fresh
Perfect,
grown
bro.
fruits. You got coconut water because you got a coconut tree
The
right here.
potassium from coconut water as well. So just think about all the natural food that you'd be getting and eating has so much benefit for you to eat.
Dad,
It's like a 15-minute timer or something.
Dad. No, it's like the battery's dead.
Rip to the video.
I think I have another battery that might fit.
I think no, I have another battery. Here,
Yeah,
switch.
change the battery back.
Yeah, pop that one out and change it into this one. This is the struggle of trying to record a podcast and then record a podcast. Here, use that switch. I'll come help you.
So, oh, I see it. Oh, okay. Yeah, look at that. Hold up. You won't hear that anywhere else.
Isn't that just a lovely ambiance?
You
Yeah.
hear this every day, like 10 times a day.
And then I just grabbed us some Gatorade, which by the way, this actually has microplastics in it, but we're gonna enjoy it
It's
anyway.
okay, it has BPI
Yes.
that will only give you gynecomastia. Very high estrogen, low testosterone.
love like your sports drink and you love bitch tits, drink Gatorade, please. Now we're recording again.
Yeah, we're recording again. And you know what, Jacob? I was just thinking about this. You need to do an episode of the podcast, but we need to do this out of the country. We need to get out of the country and do this.
I agree with that. I like that
It's funny
idea.
I think there needs to be a trip.
It's funny. It's funny because in the U.S., like how many people actually leave the U.S. that are like born and raised here? Like, not many people, and they want to make it
Probably
seem like
12%.
everything is here. You don't need to leave because once you leave and you realize that life is actually different out there, they're afraid you might not come back, and that's the biggest issue. They need you over here to make them more money. They need to keep you a slave.
They want you to be
You don't want to free your
ostracized from the
slaves.
rest of the world.
Exactly. They don't want to free their slaves.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to free their slaves if they're benefiting you.
They want, it's like the slave master to the slaves. Like you make them believe that living on the plantation is actually more beneficial and safer for them than the outside world.
Right. Yeah, and traveling honestly is not as expensive as people think. Like for example, I think a flight ticket to Turkey was like $1,200 or something like that.
And
And
you
it-
think, shit,
it's like
right now,
round
if you want to
trip.
go to Hawaii, that's
Yeah.
a grand ticket.
Yeah, so you can go to a different country or a different continent for $1,200 and experience something completely different. And it's not. It's not.
It's not a
really
huge
that bad.
commitment.
Like yeah, exactly. It's not a huge commitment. Like imagine, everybody wants to go to Dubai. Everybody wants to go to
The big places.
yeah the big places like Dubai or like Turkey or
Paris,
Paris, London, and
Yeah.
UK. Everybody wants to go, but in reality, the prices are not that bad. Like everybody thinks, oh, I can't afford a flight ticket. It's like $5,000. It's not.
It's not.
It's not $5,000.
Because you think, like, especially if you're in these places that have high tourist attractions. So if you're going into the bigger places, that are like, you go into Britain, you go into France, you go into Germany, you're going to Switzerland, you're going to Iceland, you're going to Qatar, you're going to Dubai in the Middle East, Turkey, all these places, you could afford a ticket there. It's just most people, they think, oh, I'm gonna make it a big trip. I'm gonna stay there for 3 months.
No, you don't gotta stay for 3 months.
Exactly,
Yeah,
and
you
but
can
that's the
go
perception that a lot of people have.
Save $1,000 every 3-4 months and spend 1 week in a different country, and you'll come back
Literally.
with different ideas that you might be able to implement
Yeah.
here and benefit off of it.
And that's a lot of people don't think about. They don't
Right.
think about a 1 week trip because they think, oh, I'm spending so much money for such a short amount of time. I want to stay longer and just
No,
save
you
up.
don't need to. I mean, for example, when I was in Turkey, and they do a lot of manufacturing and goods and things like that over there. and I went to a place called the Grand Bazaar, which is where they sell like a bunch of different items, products, antiques, clothing, different materials, Turkish carpets, which go for thousands of dollars. People spend $20,000-$30,000 on Turkish carpets.
Yeah.
And I was able to make some connections with some guy who sells Turkish carpets for the low. Like, you can get some Turkish carpet that go for 30 grand here for like $1,000 over there.
Yeah.
And now you know, all it took was that one trip that could change your entire life, because now you have a wholesaler that you can buy carpets from for $1,000, fly them into the U.S. for a couple $100 and sell them here for $6,000-$7,000.
New source of income for you.
New source of income.
Exactly. You have a new asset in your line of assets, right?
And I would have never known this if I hadn't left the
You
U.S.
never left and went to Turkey, right?
And I mean, shit. Let's think about this. The way that people even look at money is just completely
The perception
wrong.
of money is crazy.
It is all ridiculous. I mean, what even is money? You got to ask yourself that first. But you know what? I won't go into that. But one thing is, people think, okay, I want to make six figures. I want to make $100,000. I want to go get a job. I want to make $100 grand. But instead of thinking, I want to go get a job and make $100 grand, why don't you try switching your mindset and think, how many units sold for me to hit $100 grand?
Exactly.
People don't think about that.
They think doctor route.
Yeah,
it's like,
they
oh, I
think
can get 6
doctor.
bands from that.
No, you can find a side hustle that pays you $2,000 a month. If you get 3 side hustles paying you each $2,000 a month, you're making $6,000 a month.
Literally.
What can you do with an extra $6,000 a month? You can afford to buy yourself a really nice car. You can afford to send your parents some money, because for everyone listening, you got to take care of your parents. That's important. I don't think in the United States that's valued enough. I mean, you
The
see
family system in
80-year-olds
general is not
working.
being-
We went to Subway the
Send
other
them
day and
to
saw
old
that.
people homes so that they can rot and die there for the rest of
Literally,
their life, because
you'd
I don't
rather
have enough time
outsource the
to
care for your
yeah.
parents instead of doing it yourself, or being successful enough to have a home for them or live in the same home as them.
Exactly, and that in itself is another business. It's actually a multi-billion, if not multi-trillion-dollar
The
business.
whole retirement business
Dude.
is an entire. It's like a Ponzi scheme in general.
My
It's like,
family invested in it. It's lucrative. It
and
is
the care and
incredibly
treatment
lucrative.
that they have there is not even the same. It's like if you were to ever have your own grandparent, like if you were a grandfather and you had this lineage before you, and then they aren't successful enough to take care of themselves or even to take care of you, and so they send you to a home
Where you shit yourself in an adult diaper.
and you have to wait and press a button to have a nurse
Yeah.
come to your room to then change your pants
Exactly.
and then just wheel you in front of a TV for 2 hours.
And I feel bad for them, because they spent and devoted their entire life to raise their children to become successful people. But unfortunately, society influenced them to go to the wrong direction instead of listening to their parents and following their footsteps. So, I need to enjoy my life. Like, my father got to enjoy his life.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to take care of him. Let me send him to this home while they take care of him. And the guy has to spend the rest of his life not getting to enjoy his family or his
Doesn't
grandchildren.
even see his family.
Doesn't see his family.
That's the thing. It's like
Nobody cares about him. Nobody takes care of him, and he devoted his whole entire life for you.
for a better future. And I feel like immigrant parents that come here to sacrifice their life to give their children a better life. The children themselves don't appreciate that at all, and they spend the money that they get sent, right? Just spend it on drugs, or like spend it on alcohol, just getting fucked up. They don't even care about what their parents are doing for them. And their parents, the family values that they have, it's just a tight knit, so like very strong family unit. And the kids, they resent it because they don't have this Americanized living.
Right. Growing up, it's if you look at your parents or your grandparents, they were really close with their cousins, uncles, aunts, at family like gatherings all the time.
Their family network was way bigger.
Yeah. And now, how often do you see your great uncle? How often? Not great uncle.
How often do you even have a great uncle?
Yeah.
That's
How
the
often
big
do you have
thing.
a great uncle? Or,
How often do people even know their names?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Or your second cousin. Like, nobody knows.
How often do you even know like where your cousins live? How close
Exactly.
is your family together?
Exactly. 100%. And it's everybody was family oriented back then. Now they want to divide everybody because they understand that as a team, you're able to work better. You're able to think things through.
It changes completely because the way that you think, if you have like this is what I've been like noticing so much, like even though if like the Arab family, like your brothers, your sisters, everybody lives in one house. The women stay back at the house. They provide for the rest of the family. The men go out and work, and they funnel money back into the house.
Exactly.
You have one living situation, right? One house to pay for, and probably max, you guys all own your own cars. Let's say each kid has their own car. They're not sharing, right?
Right.
Men have their own car. You give their cars, at least 2 for the like, women back at the house, right?
Right.
You have 5 incomes. Let's say father, 4 boys.
Right.
5 incomes. Funnel that back in. Let's say you make minimum wage. You make $37,000 a year, right? 37,000 times 5. That's like what? Over 125 a year.
Way more than that. I think it's like close to 200,000 a year.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
make it 185,000 a year.
Sorry, mic's cut off.
The batteries ran out on the pod. Let's see. Can you turn that on?
Is there like an outlet you can plug it into?
No, it's a battery powered one.
Oof.
Like a double A. I thought this would happen too.
Shucks. Damn. So,
But at least we still have this mic.
yeah.
We still have that mic.
At least
Hello,
we still have
everybody.
our mic.
But yeah, back to what you were saying. I actually have a cousin that lives on in University Place,
Yeah.
and they share their incomes. They all live in one house. They all share the same income.
That's a smart way to do it because it alleviates
Yeah.
the burden of you providing for yourself and your family. So like if you have a girlfriend, man, you're providing for her as well. You're taking her out to eat. You're taking her out to places. You're providing for her all the necessities for her, right? That also cuts your finances down to invest and make a bigger profit for you.
Right.
So if you were to reinvest that money back into yourself, back into your business, you could scale that further down the line a lot easier
Right.
than you were to if you were living on your own and you're paying for your girlfriend, paying for your rent, paying for your car all by yourself versus with the family.
Mm-hmm.
And plus you have the shared experience of if all four of your brothers go into different ventures in business, you can learn from them and also connect because if your businesses cross over, you can help each other out
Right.
and build each other's businesses because you'd rather do business with somebody that you know and trust versus a random stranger.
Right.
And it just leads back into a stronger family unit, right?
The number one thing as a man is finding your brothers if you don't have any. You always have to find your brothers in all walks of life. No matter where you are, find your brothers.
Exactly.
Find another man who you guys have the same ambition, you want to go for it, you learn to trust each other, and you're not scared to fail.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because then you're going to be able to go in and do really anything, and you have the confidence that you're with somebody else who's going to,
You can conquer
Yeah.
the world if you have like 5 guys around you.
You genuinely can. All it takes is actually one very ambitious guy to start and people to follow.
Because that's when you become like, not even like a martyr, because that would mean you die, but if you become this influence around people and then you just like follow them around, like not like even like an idol, but you just become this person that people want to learn from and be around and then just have influence around you, right? You start to affect where you are. Like the where you are is more dependent on what you provide for the people around you versus what the people around you provide for you, right? And it's just reinvesting back into yourself and your qualities and then especially your mental, right? The information that you provide for other people becomes so beneficial to them that they will now follow you because you provided them with such insight and inspiration or even just knowledge in general. Because you want to hang around with people that will benefit you and also just make you feel good.
And it lifts each other up. Like for example, I'm lucky and I'm blessed that I have 4 brothers and all of us are like-minded, or 5 brothers, sorry, and all of I even forget. All of us are like-minded, and at any given time, I can always call them and we can always work together. And right now, I've learned a lot because I was more of the rebellious kind, and I'm in the U.S. by myself right now because I didn't want to live with my family. I wanted to do whatever I wanted, and then I've learned so much, and I realized that sticking together is the most important thing you can do because when you're on your own and you're basically influenced by everyone that's around you. But if you have everybody working as a team, you can live in one big house, and everybody wants their own privacy. Bro, you can get a house that has 13 bedrooms. On shared income with four different people, 5 different people. You can all drive nice cars. You can all share one big house. Have the luxury life that you want to live with everybody making a minimum wage. If you have 5 people making minimum wage, like you said, $200K a year, you can live a millionaire lifestyle.
Exactly.
How much is a mortgage on a house that's $2 million, $3 million? What, 10 grand a month?
Yeah, at max, 10
exactly.
a month.
So if everybody's making, let's say, $3 grand a month, and you have 5 people.
That's 5 people. That's about you basically getting a normal rent amount. You're around $500
with, and then plus insurance.
Insurance on top of that, which leads this up.
You're
to
left with nothing.
nearly $2 grand.
Then you have gas.
Median. Like your expenses, you're living paycheck to paycheck with a $300 in between of free range money. Like that's your. Free
If you're
capital.
lucky. If you're
lucky. And most people too, they are not lucky. They start spending it on frivolous stuff.
Right.
And the way that they do it, they start taking, like we said, it's a debt culture where we're taking credit cards out. We're putting ourselves into further and further into debt, and we make minimum payments on the debt that we already have, and the interest rate just kills us later down the line. But instead of actually investing into a family structure to where you can actually pool your money together and build a business that's going to make you bigger amounts, like your dividends at the end of the year versus you working into it, let's go into college, taking accruing debt, going into this business field, actually getting hired, let's say you're lucky and you got 3 months outside of college, you got hired in.
Mhm.
2 years in, you might be able to have a paid off car, so that's no longer making payments on it, right? But then you still have this massive amount of debt from your college. And you're gonna have to take fucking 15 years basically
I've seen
be
people. I've
debt-free.
seen people at 40 and be like, I finally paid off my college debt.
And it's like they got into college at what, 19?
Yeah, 19.
So you're taking 2 decades to pay off your college debt when you
Right.
could have just been building a business for 20
years
and taking that same amount of debt
Exactly.
into that business.
Exactly.
You'd actually have something that you could look after
Yeah,
and
right.
look like have a backing onto. Listen, what are you gonna
Right.
say? Like, oh, I have my diploma and I have my career. Which is like, dude, you just took the long way around
you
instead of
just took a
taking
long
the
way.
risk
You can
yourself.
leverage that too. I mean, I was
Yeah.
16. I had a candy company. I was making $5,000 a month profit. I was making good money. I set all my money aside. I invested in stocks. But when I went to go buy my first car, I went down to BMW Northwest, which BMW Northwest is listening. Y'all are assholes. Need to fix your customer service. Because
You
I've
hear
bought
that,
two.
BMW
Yeah, I've
Northwest?
bought 2 cars from you guys, and you're still dickheads. Anyways, I went down to BMW Northwest, and instead of paying cash, because at the time interest rates were pretty low,
Yeah.
I bought a used 3 Series. Could have spent $15,000, and I could have put that into the car. Which, you know, $15,000 at that time, I didn't have that in the account. I had
It's
maybe
more money back then.
I had maybe 12, 15 in the account. I took that money, and I invested in stock. I put a little down payment, and I made sure that it fit into my 10% rule. I was paying $200 a month, and I financed it. But I put that money into stock and it grew. So now it's worth, I think it's like $40,000 now. And I sold that car, and now I'm driving a C63 AMG, and I did the same thing. I just continue to leverage my cars, but I make sure it fits within my income, debt to income ratio. It's a really important thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in the United States don't know about that because
They don't teach you that.
they don't teach you that in school. We need
Yeah.
financial education in school. That's very important as well.
That's the
Why
one
why
thing.
would they though? So that you can venture off and do your own thing.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
so you're self-sufficient and you're
Yeah.
actually successful.
Why
would we do that?
Exactly why?
Well, we can keep them suppressed. Keep them a
Exactly.
yeah,
slave
we can keep them going to get $150,000 in debt, and then getting more debt to buy a car, and more debt to buy a house, more debt to get married, and then also let's add another additional $30,000 in credit card debt, which the average American carries.
And then let's
Exactly.
increase the taxes. Let's
Yeah.
increase producer tax. Let's increase sales tax. Like, let's just do all this.
Imagine getting
Sucks
30 or
everything.
40% of your income taxed.
Bro,
30 to 40% of your income taxed.
you don't even.
You make $1
think
million
about
in a year, they're taking 400,000 of those dollars from you.
it. You're walking
insane.
away with nearly half. And that you're getting divorced by the government, and they take half.
Exactly. it's
And then you
ridiculous.
get actually divorced.
Well,
and
first-
then she takes
takes
half. And then you have kids.
And first, let's
Whoa.
tax ourselves on tax them on what they make. Oh, then we'll also tax them on what they buy.
But let's tell them that we're using this
It's
to
also
build
tax
schools and
and
build
roads and
roads.
hospitals.
No, it's not to bomb a certain country so we can take their oil.
What military funding?
$292 trillion. I don't know where it went.
It just disappeared.
Yeah, it just disappeared out of thin air, and it's not like they can print more either.
Yeah.
It's a donation, actually. We're gonna be donating
Yeah,
to
let's
these
donate,
causes.
yeah.
It's just hopefully it'll make sense. It's an idiotic thing to really be thinking about because it happens a lot when you see it in this day, and you don't even.
It's
You can
funny because
identify
when you ask any person who joins the military and is a soldier,
You don't even think who are the people actually teaching you because you look at the people. If you look at a finance major in college and he's driving a fucking beat down Honda Civic and he's making fucking $7,000 a month and he's making under 100,000 and he's gonna tell you this is the steps to make you an independent, free 100K plus businessman. He's like, why aren't you that? He's like, oh, but you start making
Exactly.
excuses like.
driving on your
You
Nissan
should
Altima.
be, if these are valid.
And he's trying to teach you business.
You're telling me how to create a successful
Yeah.
business, but you are not yourself a successful businessman.
Right.
Why should I take your word as gospel? Why should I take your word at face value?
Right, because and my father has told me this before. He said this quote, I won't forget it. He said, anybody who can't teach, meaning anybody who couldn't do what they wanted in life, ended up teaching.
to do it.
So every professor that's teaching business is a failed business owner. He used to he used to have a business. It failed, so he said, I'm going to quit this route and end up teaching instead because it's safe and it's in my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So
It's like the same guys in the gym that you see that are like in their 50s, like, oh yeah, I used to bench 405 in high school.
Oh yeah.
Sonny, I used to live that way easy.
Yeah.
No one must, I envy you.
Exactly.
And it's like, this is what you need to do.
And it's like, it's the same thing for business. Like,
Exactly.
they will try to teach you and tell you, like, especially the culture nowadays is like, the housing markets has changed, the actual people that are knowledgeable in these areas, they've left. They no longer pass that generational knowledge down onto you. So,
and let's talk about how the economy changed like crazy. For example, like
oh
let's say 40 years ago,
inflation in the past
used to
60
make
years.
you make 30. Let's say 30K a year 40 years ago, right?
Any
a house
career
costs
path back in the
85K.
40s, you could have afforded the
Right.
lifestyle.
Yeah, a house costs 85K. 10 years later or 20 years, let's say 30 years later, it's worth $1 million now. Now you're making 35K, 37K a year.
Same amount.
But a house costs
Minimum wage,
800K.
Same amount.
But a house costs 800K. A
House
car
is
used to cost 10 grand. Now it's 100 grand.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. It's insanity.
It's idiotic when you think about it, because lifestyle inflation has become so rampant in like newer cultures nowadays. So it's like the way that you'd have a minimum wage job when you first started out when you're 16 or something, and then you graduated up into a better position over the years. So let's say you go from $16.50 an hour, now I'm up to $18 an hour, and then I get bumped up to $22 an hour, and then maybe if I'm lucky I get bumped up to $25 an hour.
20 years into
And it's like,
work.
that's like, let's be real, like 8 years in. So you get that maybe 50-cent raise each year or each quarter, or however they do it, right? And you get up to that $25 an hour, your lifestyle goes up by your income, right? Lifestyle inflation, so you're at a point where you're still living paycheck to paycheck, but everything around you is still growing and raising higher. So like you get a better car, you get a better house, still the same situation.
Exactly.
You
The more
haven't
you
changed
make, the more you spend.
Yeah.
So if you're making $3,000 a month, you're gonna live a $3,000 a month lifestyle. If you're making $20,000 a month, you're gonna live a $20,000 a month lifestyle.
And you never even get taught
If you do,
about
never even
it.
get taught about it. If you do it right, yeah. So you could be. What's the point of making $100K if you're spending all $100,000
You're
in
basically
a
working
year?
until you die.
You're working till you die.
And there's no escape. You're in a positive feedback loop of I make more money, I spend more money, I don't even know how to invest the money that I have.
And the thing
right
is that you start jumping into those markets. For example, when you start buying something expensive, the Google algorithm will now show you other things that are in the same price range. So now you're
Exactly.
buying different things at the same price.
And it's like what we
And it's
talked
like
about
that
earlier.
$100 thing that you're buying
You get
online.
exposed to all this stuff.
Yeah.
You get exposed to this high lifestyle, and then you're like, I envy that, I want that,
Right.
and you hate the place that you're at right
And
now.
nobody, like, when you're making $3,000 a month, you're going to try to find the cheapest product you possibly can for what you're trying to buy. But when you're making more than that, now it's like you don't even care about that price anymore. You're like, even if it's $100 more, you're still going to buy it. You're not going to look at the 100 or like 50% discount or anything like that.
It's like,
And
it's like coupons.
Yeah,
When you
exactly,
go shopping.
coupons, yeah.
It's like when you're broke,
Yeah.
you use every
Every
coupon
coupon
you
you
fucking
possibly
can.
could.
But then when you're making 10 grand a month, you're
Right.
like, oh, fucking groceries. I go to
Right.
Costco and I drop 2K.
2K.
Like what's
Like
the
it's
difference for
nothing,
me? It's like
On
that's
top
the
of-
huge
yeah.
shit.
Yep.
On top of that, I mean, just since 1980, I literally just looked it up. I did a little bit of research. I mean, the cost of college tuition has gone up 180%, while wages have remained essentially stagnant in comparison to that cost.
Because they up it by
Right.
inflation, so it stays the same.
Plus, people are always told, save your money, save your money, save your money. Honestly,
Inflation.
are we
kills
allowed
how
to
much
curse
you
on
save.
here? Are we allowed to curse on
Don't
here?
curse, yeah.
Fuck savings. Fuck your savings. Why? Because you should be investing your money. How in the world, when the dollar is going like this and your buying power is just, it's getting weaker and weaker every single day, why would I keep my money in
And
a
guess
savings
what?
account?
Guess what? When
I
you
can invest it.
guess what? Banks are using your money to make more money. So when they're influencing you to save,
Fractionalized
exactly.
banking.
So you know the 5% or sorry the 3% dividend that you're gonna get in the year, the bank is making hundreds of percents off of your money. So they're trying to get you to save, while your value of money goes down, and the value and the money that they're using that you're saving inside the bank, they're using that to invest or give out other money. Try to go to a bank. Give a bank $1 million, right?
Well, they'd be
Try to
scared
go-
to take that.
try-
you come
yeah,
in with cash
exactly.
and no security, they're
Exactly.
like,
Exactly.
Are you sure? You
Now,
drop it off?
exactly. Now that you're dropping it off, I dare you to come back the same day and say, "Can I have my $1 million back?"
Bro,
they
they
can't.
either close the bank down
They
for the
can't.
entire day until you pull the money back
Right.
out, or you say, I'm going to go out of state. I'm going to go across country. I'm going to keep my money here. 2 months, I'm going to pull it back out. They're going to spread that money out as far as they can to all different types of banks, all different types of sects. And then when you come back and you say, can I have my money? And they're like, can you wait 3 to 5
Yeah,
transfer days?
exactly. Exactly.
We'll put it in the account. But it's like, you can never get that money cash again.
You
They
can't.
throw it out. They'll give you credit.
They give you a hard time trying to pull it out. They give you a hard time even depositing money.
Bro,
You know how many questions they ask if you try to deposit anything more than $10,000? You know how many banks
the
they've
IRS would
yeah,
be on your ass.
exactly.
My
You know how many
trash
bank
account.
accounts they've closed through the dealership because they keep saying, "Oh, you guys are money laundering." The FBI came to my house and thought that we were money laundering. He knew exactly what my name was. He knew that the dealership I worked at. He knew, and I'm like, how does he know? There's 6 people that are living in this house. How does he know specifically I'm Abraham? Specifically work at Venture Auto Sales. Like, they do their research. They know where the money's going and when it's coming in.
Access to all your information too.
They know
Your
everything.
Banking accounts, your banking records.
They know everything.
That's given to them.
They've shut
They're not
down my
holding
Cash App, they've shut down my Venmo, and they've shut down my PayPal before. Why? Because I have side hustles, and so I'll get money, you know, for things. But then when you're doing too many transactions, they'll flag you for it. So at this point, I've said, you know what? I'm not doing that anymore. I keep my money in cash. To the IRS who's listening, come find it. I don't really give a shit. You're not gonna find it.
I make a lot of charitable donations in cash, okay?
Yeah, I do make a lot of charitable donations. Okay? I mean, come find it. I mean, honestly, it's honestly smarter to keep your money in cash and then invest it. You know, be cash, you know, always have cash on you, than to just have it sitting in a bank account where you're not going to get access to it. They have total control over you. They can take it from you at any
They can
instant.
freeze your bank account. If you you really think about it,
It kind of sucks because that's another thing. When I was traveling, I was out of the country and I was trying to make
saw a
transactions.
transaction on a Turkish site.
Exactly.
And you're like,
They canceled my account and I couldn't really communicate with them because of the time difference, and it was a weekend.
Yeah.
And it was a Saturday. The bank's closed, so it was going like 3 days and I wasn't able to use my card. Luckily, I had my family with me, so they were able to spot me. But if I was there by myself and they froze my
you've been
account,
fucked.
3 days I couldn't communicate with the bank because of the time difference and they were
Imagine
closed.
you're in a restaurant, you can't pay. And
Can't
they
pay,
won't
you
let
can't eat,
they
you
won't
can't-
let you wash the dishes, and so you get held in a jailing cell
Right.
for some charge that they're gonna come up with.
Right.
And so you just sit there and you're like, fuck, I don't have access to any of my money.
Nothing.
I can't call on anybody else because
Yep.
there's a time difference and I won't be able to. And there's just tons of different variables that would affect you.
Yep, it's true.
But I feel like this is the whole reason why, like as a man, you need to diversify yourself and your skill set so that you're able to survive or make money or even network with people in any place that you're at. So that means being diversified in your languages. How many languages do you really know that you can work yourself around? That's something that I've been looking into myself. Is how can I make myself more accessible to people around me? It's even you can. How many people can you speak Spanish to, right? That's the biggest thing. Is that's 45% of the world speak Spanish.
You know how many customers I've gotten just because I speak Spanish?
And you think about what if you never able to have those sales? How badly would that affect your income?
Terribly.
Exactly.
And it's you don't even think about that now because you know it. But if you're a businessman and you're selling a product specifically, why wouldn't you diversify yourself into different cultures and languages that you can basically
Absolutely.
provide to? Because there's only so much you can do in America right now as an English speaking person. Before, if you knew Chinese, if you could speak from Indian, if you could speak Hindi, if you could speak German, if you could speak Korean, if you could speak Japanese, right? There'd be so many ventures you could go into, especially with locations that are being ran by first wave immigrants, right? They came in from the 60s, they came in from the 50s, and they built up a business for their family. You can start actually networking with these people.
Imagine going to Japan knowing how to speak Japanese fluently. How much business you can bring into America. And
proper Japanese, that's
Japanese.
held way in high regard if you were a half-assed Japanese speaker, right?
Exactly.
Because even in Japan right now, if you were a native, pure-blooded Japanese boy at 18, you'd get thrashed on by your elders saying, "Oh, you speak terrible Japanese.
exactly.
Your kanjis
Yeah.
are terrible.
Yeah.
Your written hand kanjis are terrible." Versus a foreigner comes into your line speaking perfect Japanese, and then you come in the kanji is perfect. They're just "Oh wow, foreigner knows that language so much," and they start having praise, or they become a lot more comfortable with you around because you've adapted, or at least you took the time to learn about them, right? And that's just the same thing. It's if you're very popular, let's say you're an influencer or something like that, and so you have a lot of draw with the community. Somebody comes up to you and they don't know who you are, but they know the figure of you. It's a lot less impactful for them to come up and be "Oh, you're this so-and-so person, I've seen you so much, I don't really know anything about you," and they start listing off a bunch of things. So they want pictures or they want something from you, versus, "Oh my gosh, you're Abraham, I know you from way back when," and they start naming off a bunch of relationships they've had with you, or the people they've known, the people that you've interacted with. You start looking back on it, it's "Oh wow, yeah, I've done that." It's and you start relating with them more, you drop your guard a little bit with them. And you're able to have more of a fluid conversation versus someone comes in that doesn't really respect you or done their research with you, and you're kind of in that weird standoffish position to where, I'm not gonna let you into a lot of stuff that I have going on. I'm just gonna give you like the basic answers that I'm prepared for, right?
Right.
Yeah, and like knowledge is power. The more you know, and the more you're educated about cultures and values and belief
It's
systems.
never a downside.
It's
really.
never, yeah, exactly. It's never a downside. You can always learn more. That's why conversation is so important. Like what we're doing right here. I mean, especially in our generation, when you hang out with your friends, a lot of times there's just gonna be people sitting on their phones, and you're not gonna be really having like that
You just
conversation.
sit around in a circle on your phone,
Yeah.
and then like an hour passes, you're like, good talk, guys.
Yeah.
So this jacket, I want you to give me a price on it, right? So it's made out of goose fur, right?
Goose fur.
Yeah, it's goose fur. It's like genuine goose fur, right? Just feel the quality of the jacket. It tells you the temperature.
So goose feathers inside.
Goose feathers, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. Just the clothing industry in itself.
Exactly, yeah, clothing industry.
Because you think back in the day, like your parents would have the skills because they were growing up poor. They knew how to make their own clothing. They knew how to
Right.
stitch. They knew
Right.
how to make fabrics. They knew how to make clothing out of old clothing.
Yeah, like my mom sews my sweats shut. Like if there's a hole,
You
she'll
take
sew
that
it
for
shut.
granted so much
Yeah.
now. It's like if you have a hole in a pair of jeans, you say, fuck it, I'll buy a new pair of jeans.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, I'm going to stitch this pair of jeans. And
Make it
that's
look new. Make it look like it was
shoes,
never even
literally
there.
the customization of what you could do with your own clothing and how you could express yourself through your clothing. So much broader and like a wide range versus
Absolutely.
you doing it yourself than buying it from a manufacturer, because there's only so many options that manufacturer will provide to you versus you actually making it yourself.
Yeah, like being a cobbler, I mean, that's like a completely
Dude.
dying trade. People used to fix their
Cobblers.
shoes. Now people get a pair of shoes, they throw them out.
Think about the shoes that you have on that are uncomfortable. You can actually, a cobbler would have made a pair of shoes for you that would fit the perfect, like
Yeah.
fit the best pair you've ever had, bro. And now it's like you get some Nikes, you get some Adidas, you get some type of running shoe, and then you have a dress shoe. What, you go to Tommy Hilfiger, you go to Balenciaga, you go to Gucci, you get some shoes
Oh,
on.
Balenciaga?
Watch
That's
him,
a whole nother thing.
watch
Bro.
him, watch him get rid of "In God We Trust" on the quarter and start
I
putting like
swear,
"In
they
liberalism
they
we trust."
took it out of the national anthem, or like
Yeah.
the flags like, bro. Even now it's hard to remember like the entire.
And it sucks because recently, like especially
I
like
pledge-
Logan
I pledge
Paul,
alle-
Pledge Allegiance, yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With
Liberty and justice
with
for all.
justice for all.
Which none of that shit's true anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Not even that, but like another thing that I've noticed, especially like on social media now, because like for example, Islam used to get a lot of hate, and now it's Christianity. A lot of people are hating Christianity now and saying that in the Bible you can't be gay and transgender, and then everybody's trying to like leave
And
the
they don't
faith
even
now.
they don't even look into it now.
They don't
Because
look into
a
it
lot of
anymore. They
now-
don't care anymore.
Bro, it's not even that
Did you
you
see
hate-
Logan Paul when he was like just talking shit about Christianity?
And has he read a Bible before?
No, but he's
that's
making
the thing,
assumptions.
too.
Yeah,
You
he's
talk
making
all this
assumptions
shit,
on
you
it.
don't even read into the religion itself.
No.
It's like I don't understand. Like
He was
what-
making like points
Yeah.
and making like accusations at the Bible about the Bible when it doesn't say that clearly in the Bible.
Literally no verses, and then he just
Yeah, like,
assumes
yeah,
and
just
strong
assumes.
it.
When
And
I-
it takes a verse out of context.
And then the thing is again, okay, so in the Bible it doesn't say that if you're gay you're gonna be killed. It says if you're gay it's fine, but don't act upon what you
It's
feel.
the lust
It's
that
the
you're
lust.
acting
You're
upon. So
acting
the seven
upon.
deadly sins of man. It's like you have pride, lust, gluttony, wrath,
Right.
sloth, envy.
So if you have the urge to be a pedophile, you have the urge
So that's
to
a-
be a
that's a
pedophile,
lust.
but you hold yourself back from it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's nothing
Exactly.
wrong with that.
Acting
Everybody
upon
has
it.
lust. It's just
Everyone's-
acting upon it.
Everyone's mentally weak nowadays. Everyone just gives into their impulses.
Literally.
Oh, I want to do
Give
this.
into your
I'm gonna go
emotions.
do it. Oh, I just decided today that I want to cut off my dick and become a woman. I'm gonna go do it.
So
And
many
it's
people
sad.
make permanent decisions on
Yeah.
temporary emotions. So the way that they feel, you're not going to feel it tomorrow, and yet you make permanent decisions based upon those feelings that will change. It's not
funny,
an empirical fact.
You know the
They-
third most popular religion. It's not even a religion, but it's atheism.
Yeah.
First it's Christianity, then Islam, then atheism.
Atheism is basically the religion in itself.
Yeah, now it's atheism.
Atheism.
And atheism, all it is an excuse to do whatever you want and not feel bad about it.
And the biggest
personification of
bullshit about
pride.
that,
Right.
the biggest bullshit about that is the people who say that. The reason they say that is because they want to be gay or they want to be transgender.
But
Or
then they
it's
say,
a
I believe in
But
religious
they also
science.
have the highest suicidal rates.
Dude, the thing too is like I believe in science. Science is the proven fact of God's creation, right?
Exactly.
So science is just us as men dissecting and analyzing what God's creation
Because it's
actually
funny when you
is.
look at the books.
It's not like we created
Okay,
this
for
shit.
example, in the Bible, it was written 2,023 years ago, right? If not a little bit longer than that. There's scientific evidence in the Bible that's accurate today and proved by science. So it's not really a book of science. So it's not a book of science. It's a book of how to live.
Exactly.
Because when you look at the way the world is now, look at the U.S. now that it's not backed by Christianity, look how degenerate it is. But if it was backed by Christianity and they were following the rules and they were following the laws, we would not have the same issues we do right now. We wouldn't have the same crime rates. We wouldn't have the same rape rates. We wouldn't have the same thefts and burglaries if we were actually strict on morals.
Exactly.
If someone steals, in my mind, you should cut off their arm.
And that's
And
that's
that-
actually a verse
yes.
in sin. If your right hand makes you to sin, cut off your
Yeah.
right hand.
It's what it says in the Bible. It's what it says in the Quran. It's what it says in every religious text. Which, by the way, there's so much division between religions. When, like, there's a lot of people who are like,
It's a lot
well, I
of
don't like
similarities.
Muslims, I don't like Jews, I don't like Christians, but we all believe in the same God, which is the God of Abraham. So, I mean, we all believe in the same God. The Bible, the Quran, and the Torah are essentially very, very similar in a
It's
lot of
basically
ways.
like Old Testament. So this is what I've looked into a lot. It's like basically Old Testament values and Old Testament law is common among all three religions, right? Judaism, Islam, and then Christianity, right?
But they want to divide all of them. They want to make
It's
it.
that
They want to have a
think of
division.
Who divided it first? The people that divided it first was like I said like radicalized people. So like extremists basically. And so a lot of it came from like government psyops and shit. So like a lot of things that were going on. It's like you have like an Islamic friend, right, that grew up next to you. You have no ill will to him. You know the character of that person itself, right? And so why would you have any hate towards that man, right? Versus you getting fed a rhetoric of what these people are like, what's going on with them. It's a small sect of people that believe in the same religion. So like Sharia law, there's small sectors of people that believe in that law, right? And so you wouldn't say that that's all of Islam, right?
Obviously not.
And so you wouldn't say that there's white nationalist Christians, right? You wouldn't say that's all of Christianity either.
Obviously not.
But that's the public perception of the religion. And it's also the institution of religion that turns off a lot of people. A lot of atheists that come forward that say they used to be Christians, they say, oh, the church did blah, 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 blah.
But the book
People
didn't
in
say
the
that.
church did
The
blah,
people
blah,
in the
blah.
church are not the people in the book. It's
Exactly.
different.
And why do people...
But the perception of the religion from the institution walked them away from God.
Right.
But it was never the actual
The book,
relationship
it wasn't
with God.
And
It wasn't
why
the
are-
book and it wasn't the teachings.
Exactly.
It was the people
a
in the
false
church.
perception of the religion.
And why is anyone scared of Sharia law anyway? Because the main beef people have with it, especially in the U.S., is, oh, they're telling women to cover themselves. Go look at a picture of Mary. We were talking about this the other day. Go look at a picture of Mary. What's she wearing? She's wearing a veil, and she's covered from head to toe.
It was very conservative clothing that they would wear
Right.
back in the day. And especially back in then, most clothing was the same. There wasn't a lot of variation in between, especially back then, because you think about diseases in itself, the way that you dressed covered yourself from those
Not even
diseases.
that. Like for example, the rape crimes, the rape
Oh,
rates.
100.
If every woman was covering herself and lowering
Imagine
her,
going back in like 1700s and you see a big bloused woman like with a corset, triple layer. How are you getting access to that without
Exactly.
taking
Yeah,
like
exactly.
20 minutes,
20 minutes.
of like sniff, sniff, sniff,
Exactly.
rip, sniff, sniff,
Yeah,
rip,
exactly.
rip.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh,
And then,
I see
and
some
then
ankle.
It's not even that. It also teaches men to lower their gaze. Whenever I see a female, I don't look at her. I look the other direction. I feel actual embarrassment in looking at her. I don't feel it's right for me to look at a girl in
If
that
you
way.
see like in modern days,
Every time
now,
I see a girl that's dressed in a certain way, I look down, I look right, I don't look at her.
if you see a
We're in
woman-
Meridian.
yeah.
It's normal.
Yeah, it's...
If you see, bro, I remember back in like living in Lakewood, bro, like during 4th of July, so many times
Yeah.
people would be lighting off fireworks.
I don't know if that's
3
fireworks
weeks.
or gunshots, but
Fireworks,
I wouldn't be
those are
surprised.
You know, there's a lot of
It wasn't a
shootings on
sharp
4th of
fall.
July, though,
Yeah.
because that's like... I mean, think about it. There's all this noise. What are you going to do?
Bro, Chicago
Sure.
during 4th of July, you're not lighting off fireworks, bro. You're lighting off 9mm and 223s, bro. But yeah, we lost our train of thought.
Yeah.
What were we saying?
We're talking about religion, about the
You want to know something
the
interesting?
misconceptions.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you sit like this, it actually raises your testosterone. Seriously.
It's that chest out,
Yes.
shoulders back,
Chest out,
arm position.
shoulders back. This actually makes a difference, and there's a war on this now. There's a war on man-spreading. We're not allowed to man-spread. We're not allowed to take up space.
This is how I sit on the subway when there's a pregnant woman on the seat.
Yeah, this is exactly how I sit.
My testosterone's raising through the work,
Doing
and then a liberal woman's just sitting there like
amputate.
with like it's a man just dressed up in a wig. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm pregnant, you fucking asshole!
No, but it's yeah. I think religion fixes a lot of the problems we have in the world, and it's very sad. And this is coming from a Muslim person. It's very sad that the government and this country is not being backed up by Christianity, because I feel like if it was, we would not have the same issues that we do now. If it was, we wouldn't have the same crime rates, rape rates. Everybody would be successful. Everybody would work together instead of being individualized. And because as a Muslim, you have to believe in Christianity because it was a revelation that was sent down. It's more like a unity, and it's the same thing with Judaism. You can't, as a Christian, deny that Judaism wasn't a religion because Moses was also a prophet.
exactly.
So you have to believe in that revelation. So me, as a Muslim, I have to believe in Christianity and I have to believe in Judaism because they were revelations.
And it's interesting to think about because as soon as you pulled religion from the school system, from the household, and then you especially break up the family household. So in all of religion, each religion itself, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, they all talk about the family structure and how man is the top of the structure, right? God is above man. The wife, and the woman is below the father, the man, and then you have the children that are below both of them, right? And that family hierarchy is what's meant to be the basis of the foundation of your business, your family, and especially how you educate
Your neighborhood
kids,
and your
neighborhood,
country.
society. That's how it should always be based on. So the men are at the top, and especially the men take on all the risks, the direction of the family, especially the values of the family. Because if
How can a man
The
go
man
a
does
certain
not
direction
believe.
in life when his wife is constantly trying to tell him, no, you can't do that, and he has to
You
listen to his wife
you
because
have one going this way
Yeah.
and you have three pulling back.
pulling him back, and the man will never be successful because he has to listen to his wife and his children.
Instead of four going one way, you have one going three
Yeah.
ways.
If you buy a house and your wife is up your ass every single day telling you, I don't like this neighborhood, I don't like this house, I don't like this
You're gonna
neighborhood,
leave.
I don't like this house, you're gonna move eventually.
Yeah.
And on top of that, as a man, your entire value is on what you create and it's on what you can provide. Versus
Exactly.
as a woman,
Sad sometimes.
your value is basically in
Looking
today,
pretty.
It's looking pretty. I mean, if you're like a beautiful 10 out of 10 from a village in the middle
You'll
of
have
Russia,
access to billionaires.
exactly, they'll want to take you on their yacht.
On social media now, because I think a lot of what the value of what people are looking at, they think short term, so they think of like the next 20 years. So if you're in your 20s right now, you look into your 40s. So that's where you think about what your marriage would be looking at. You value most of it off of like frivolous stuff. So like you think about sex, places to go, environments that you're going to be visiting, travel. These are the things that you're going to be thinking about, like, oh, when I'm 40, and what my marriage is going to be based around.
Everybody's
That's,
afraid
like,
to get married too these days. Back then, people used to get married at 18, 19, 20 was fine. Nobody wants to get married anymore. Why? Because they have access to unlimited sex, basically.
Yeah.
And number two,
Pornography is on the rise.
exactly,
so, like,
on
why
the
would you
rise.
need
So
to
why
get
do I
married?
need to get married? And on
Why
top
would
of
you
that,
take all this risk?
yeah, and then women these days are very independent.
Promiscuous. A lot of them are sleeping around. They have at least 20 bodies by the time
Exactly.
they're 25.
So why would I get married and risk the chance of losing everything because my
to a promiscuous woman that doesn't have any
Exactly.
values for building a family.
exactly?
Well, guys, I'd actually rather go to college and spend 150 grand, and I'd rather sit at home alone and just jerk off to my computer and just keep my dick in my hand and just think about how I'll never be able to afford a Lamborghini.
When I rip my elf bar, it makes me forget about my problems for the day. Man, I love my nicotine.
As I'm hitting an outboard.
And as I hit my flume, which honestly, this is the worst shit. Like I'm trying to quit this, even though I keep hitting it. I do want to
You're
quit.
getting indoctrinated into the matrix
Yes,
again.
I am
This is your
indoctrin-
program.
Honestly, if I could just give this up, it would stop a lot of my things. And honestly, it goes back to like self-control. Like honestly, both of us, we should really give it up. We should. I mean, we don't know what the fuck's in this. It's a bunch of chemicals from China.
You break it open. You don't think about, like, especially disposable vapes and disposable cartridges.
As I'm about to hit.
You think about a lot of the environmentalists, they fucking vape, bro. You don't even think these aren't recycled. These cartridges are not recycled. The lithium, the batteries in themselves, they're not recycled. The acid in them, the cotton in them, and especially the springs. You're breathing in copper, zinc, metals that you're ingesting into your lungs, into your bloodstream, right? You're not supposed to get that into your lungs, especially when you overburn your cartridges. So let's say you can't buy a new vape, you don't have enough money, so you start hitting your old one until it just burns out and you just taste this nasty shit, right?
Yeah.
You're breathing in those chemicals, and that's what's really fucking your lungs up. You're getting popcorn lung at a young age because either one, you're broke and you can't feed that addiction anymore, or two, you've done it so much that you don't care and you just fucking hit an old cart even though you have the money to get a new one, right? You just use whatever around you. But it's like, nicotine in itself is just a whole other subject. It's a crazy thing.
Yeah, it is. It's insane. But yeah, I think we've talked.
Yeah.
It was a good one.
Yeah, we've jumped into like a million different subjects.
We had a whole other
Yeah.
conversation
Yes.
before we had the podcast, but
Yeah.
I'd say that's a good second episode.
Yeah.
So, top G's of America, top G's
of
of
America.
the world. This is what we're gonna be doing. Second podcast in the bank. To my right is Abraham Dobashi.
Attack helicopter.
I'm
Union.
Jordan.
You can't assume my gender.
Alright.
I
This is.
And I'm actually a they, them. I identify that way. So, you guys all have to call me, they went to the park. He didn't go to the park. They went to the park. Thank you very
Hey,
much.
you know what we should do?
pronouns
We
handsome
should-
and wealthy,
we should,
bro.
Yeah. We should take like this long format podcast and purposefully pick out the most controversial parts and like
Make
have
it
no
into
context
TikTok.
around it.
Just
Post it
start
on TikTok.
Yeah, honestly, you would blow up
Yeah.
because people
so much
will shit
controversy.
themselves.
Yeah.
Dude, we should do that.
Top G's of America.
Top G's of America. We just start creating personas that are just
Yeah.
over the top.
Right.
And I mean, like, that's the beauty of this is honestly, like, if you were to do that, I mean, there's so many men who will be inspired by it because even myself, like, I'm
It's
in the
the
process
sprinkling
of
of
trying to
truth,
become
man.
a G. To me, this guy's like a top G.
Yeah.
He's a G. To me, you guys are both Gs. You guys are buff. You're strong. I'm trying to be that way. There's a bunch of other young guys who are all trying to be that way, and it's better to be going in that direction, to be hearing these kind of controversial things, than to be watching the bullshit that you see every single day with the other media that you're
100%.
consuming. So,
Yeah, and I feel like it's a good way to stop or good way to end on the podcast.
yeah.
Because I feel like
Yeah.
we could go on so much.
Yeah, we'll
further on
keep going.
This
This will
topic.
spiral.
Yeah. So that's for the next
Yes.
podcast. Anyways, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. If you like this content, please leave a comment, like down below, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.
Alrighty.
Peace.
Dude, Jacob, seriously, I really enjoyed them. I
thank
forget
you
how
for
much I
letting me do
enjoyed
this.
them.
This is so dope. I appreciate it, bro.